and explain why you're running for school board. And we're going to start with Esperanza this time.
Hi, how are you? My name is Esperanza Orozco, and I was a teacher in HCISD for over 10 years. I think that unique perspective really brings something that is lacking on the school board. It is something that can be very beneficial to the school board when you have somebody who has the experience and the know-how of what actually is taking place in the classroom. And that's why I'm running for school board, because I know I can bring that to the table. Thank you.
All right, Joanna.
She did it a lot quicker than 3 minutes. Oh, you're good.
You want me to add to that?
My name is Joanna Mikalenka, and I am running for trustee position place 4. And the reason that I chose to run for school board has always been, running for school board has always been a desire of mine. I've always wanted to help out my community and serve my community in different areas. And so one of the ways that I have done that in the past is participating in a lot of different committees on the school board, and also helping out with Girl Scouts. Now my children are grown. They don't need mom as much as they used to anymore, unfortunately. They're moving off in their lives, and so this is a different phase of life that I'm going through, and I think that I could bring a good perspective. I've lived in the community for 20 years. I grew up in a small town, so community is very important to me. And helping out, I think that there's a need, especially in the way that the district is right now. It's a fast-growing community. We're going to have a lot of financial challenges in the next 3 to 5 years. If you've attended any of the budget meetings, then you'll know that we're going to face some tough times. And my experience, I am a CPA. I graduated from Texas A&M in 1993. I graduated from the University of Texas at Arlington in 1996. I've been a licensed CPA since then. I am the corporate controller for a large technology company in Austin, downtown. Our revenue is more than $1 billion on an annual basis. So I got to get numbers. I understand that. I also have served on many committees, which have helped me understand the needs of some of the things that are in the district, and I've seen some of the weaknesses. My kids attend or have attended some of the schools in Hayes, and so I know some of the pain points that we're feeling, and I think that I can bring that to the table. My business experience, coupled with my personal desire to help our community be fabulous and great, is something that is what's driving me to run for school board.
All right. Well, first I want to thank Hayes Educators Association for allowing us the opportunity to be here with you all tonight. My name is Meredith Keller. I'm the current trustee for District 4. I have 4 kids. My two girls are graduates from Hayes High School. I have a son that currently attends Hayes High School and a 10-year-old in elementary school. My husband Alan is here with me tonight, and I am most grateful for his support. My family moved to Hayes in 2002. We got busy around here. For the last 13 years, I have dedicated myself to this community. I started out like many people do in this position as homeroom mom, booster clubs, PTA, that type of thing. Then I moved on into campus leadership teams, things like that. Then I moved on into district level service, things like the attendance zone committees, growth impact committees, district leadership teams, principal hiring committees. I was the HCISD representative on the Texas State Comptroller's Task Force for Student Learning. And then I also attended almost every board meeting from 2003 until 2010 when I was elected to serve as your trustee. So when I was elected, it was kind of like just changing chairs, because I had already such a strong knowledge of what was going on in the community from my years of attending those board meetings as a member of the audience. As your current trustee, I am the current board president. I was the past vice president and past secretary. I've also served on board level committees like the Internal Audit Committee and the Board Operating Procedures Committee. It's the time I put in, it's the dedication that I exhibit, it is the knowledge that I possess of this district that makes me the most qualified candidate. I serve our district well. I advocate for teachers, I advocate for students, for parents, for taxpayers, And I do it successfully. I have successfully advocated for lower taxes, for higher pay, for lower class sizes, for process improvements. I was recently endorsed by Hayes Educators Association for this position, and that's because they understand my commitment gets results, and I'm grateful to them for their support. I thank them for letting us be here tonight, and I look forward to the questions that we're about to receive. Thank you.
Okay, we will start with the question portion. Again, each candidate has 3 minutes to answer the question. If you do run out of time and she puts it down, please finish the sentence that you're on, and then we'll continue. So we'll pass this down, and this time Ms. Keller will start, and draw a number, please.
B6.
All right. Question number 6. The state has changed the allocation of time from days to minutes for the school day. And as such, the Hayes CISD has had to increase their instructional day by 20 minutes. Are you in favor of compensating teachers past the 8.5-hour work schedule that they currently have?
Unequivocally. Absolutely, yes. And I mentioned that in the board meeting that we had when we discussed it. During the workshop meeting, we had a big presentation on why we had to go to minutes, and it was the committee's recommendation that we extend our school day, and they proceeded to bring us a calendar, so that was terrific, and that passed 7-0. I did have some heartburn over it because adding 20 minutes to the day doesn't, teachers don't appear to be compensated for that. They're not going to leave at the same time. They are not going to just say, well, we're not going to do 20 minutes of PLC or faculty meetings or parent conferences. That's just going to extend their day. So I requested information from our administration about what other districts might be doing. They looked into it and came back to us the following week at our business meeting, and so that it didn't appear that any other districts were going to change their pay structure as a result of the change from days to minutes in the longer instructional day. At which time, I can't remember exactly, but I think my words were, I think I'm ready to be the leading charge on that. Even if other districts don't do it, we still can. So yes, I am in favor.
Thank you. Will you pass that down, please?
I will.
Number 4. All right.
Can we put it back?
No, please don't. How do you feel about meetings and collaboration between the district administration and the employee organizations? What are your thoughts about meeting on a regular basis with the leadership and members of Hayes TSTA educators to discuss issues and concerns?
I think meetings are extremely important if used constructively, and because that's the way that the message is going to be communicated from. You need to have avenues for communication, and so one of the mechanisms for that is having meetings between different organizations. And so I think that it's important if you are going to have meetings, because then you are going to be taking away time from other tasks from the administration, that the agenda is set, meetings are planned, and schedules are identified well in advance so that you can have a very productive meeting. It's important to not just have a meeting, but you have to have a productive meeting so that you can accomplish certain tasks. And so things need to be outlined and planned and prepared well far in advance so that you can have an effective level of communication.
Great, thank you. Number 8. What are the greatest challenges facing Hayes CISD, and how would you go about resolving them? Please explain your answers.
Some of the greatest challenges that the district face is 1, academic programs, 2, rapid growth, and the third one is the retention and recruitment of teachers. And those are 3 things that I have been talking to people about. We need to make sure to strengthen our academic programs. That is something that we definitely need to work on. While we have made great strides in our academic programs, and have CTE certifications available now that we never did before. We have over 1,000 certifications available now, which is really great, and we are starting to strengthen them. We still need to work on that. We also need to work on having more electives or having more advanced classes for our students in middle school and high school, giving them more options to choose from. When you look at other middle schools and high schools all over Texas, they do have different electives, different classes that are being offered, like robotics, like STEM for everybody, not just one or two schools. That is so important that we get that to all our children in the district. The next thing is our rapid growth. Because of rapid growth, we need to prioritize what we're doing. Class size is huge, and staffing. Those are two main things that we really need to look at when we look at rapid growth. When we look at retention and recruitment of teachers, again, that is somewhere that we need to work on. Where we have never been ranked #1, we've always been at the bottom of the pay scale, we really need to look at that. We have increased salaries, and we are making strides in that as well. But again, lots of work needs to be done. And in order for us to retain teachers that have that experience and knowledge, we do need to compensate them accordingly. What we're doing is we're hiring a lot of young teachers to the district that don't have that experience, and what's happening is that we have a higher turnover than the state average is, because they're spending a couple of years here, 3 to 5 years here, and then they're leaving. So it is up to us to make sure that we retain and recruit highly qualified teachers to our district, because that right there is what's going to benefit our students. That right there is what's going to solve the strengthening of academic programs, and that right there is going to help with our rapid growth. Now, when we talk about class size is very important to me. Being a teacher for over 10 years in the district, I have been impacted by class size. I know what it is to have 23, just one over the state mandate in your classroom when you're a 4th grade teacher. And let me tell you, it is difficult to teach when you have 23 students in your class and you need to individualize for each student. So it's very important that we prioritize when we look at rapid growth as well. Thank you.
Nine.
How can school board members contribute toward creating a learning environment where students can be successful? And if elected, what skill set will you bring to this board that will ensure our students' success?
Well, okay, so school board members should be always contributing to the learning environment. It should be our focus of every board meeting. Every agenda item should focus on student learning, and in a way that's meaningful. Things like, are we adding more to a teacher's day? Are we adding more and then taking something away? Are we addressing well, here's something that is troubling to me. We're expecting our teachers to differentiate to the broadest spectrum of class, of students, and that seems veritably impossible to me. So one of the goals that I have is to work with our administration, and I believe that I have some support on this from fellow board members about trying to manage that so that they don't have every level of children. So grouping or clustering in addition to small class sizes. But that's our job, is to focus on those things. It's our job to make sure that our teachers are adequately compensated. It's our job to make sure that we are not inundating them with additional things like new initiatives with no follow through. It's our job, and all of that contributes to the student learning in a classroom. In addition to those class sizes, which I think everyone knows by now is such an important thing to me. So we've been pretty successful at the elementary level. What I'd like to work on now is secondary. I understand and I respect that things take time, and that we cannot do everything at once, but we've conquered that elementary level for the most part. But now in this budget cycle, I'd like to look at working more on secondary, and all of that is going to contribute to student learning, and it's what we do. It's what we should do. No.
Number 7.
Okay, this is a long one.
Great.
Educational support personnel such as secretaries, custodians, bus drivers, and cafeteria workers are critical to the effective operation of every school. About 250,000 educational support personnel work in Texas schools, and they tend to have low salaries, few benefits, and are at-will employees. They have virtually no rights. What is your understanding of at-will employment, and how do you feel about due process for these school employees? And do you believe that they should be paid a living wage?
I believe that Texas is an at-will employer. I'm an at-will employee as well with my job every day. I go to work and I have another job interview every single day. I have to make sure that I perform at the highest level of excellence every day and make sure that I am doing my job to the best of my abilities at all times. And so I firmly believe in doing your best at all times, which is why I think that I've been a success in my career, and especially in the technology industry. Being an at-will employer in the state of Texas, I don't think that you can change that unless we're going to take a bigger, broader stance in the state of Texas employment legislation. But I do feel that doing a job, you should be paid just a fair wage, because we do require, and support staff is extremely important in order to maintain a school. If the lunches aren't there for the kids can't eat. If the school is dirty, it's going to be horrible. You see, if you don't invest in your infrastructure, you can look in Michigan and you can see the problems that the state of Michigan is going through now with all of your educational problems with not maintaining facilities, not making sure that adequate support was invested in. And it's an investment. It's an investment just like we're investing in our teachers' in our teachers. So yes, I do think that it's critical that they are paid a living wage. I think that it's a balance though also. You have to balance how you're going to allocate funds to the support staff and how you're going to allocate funds to your teaching staff as well. And so that's why the budgeting process is extremely important, and why that's one of my core fundamental processes is that's what I do. It's extremely important. Sometimes you have to make hard decisions, but looking at overall, nobody wants to work for free. And you have to do what you can in order to make sure that everybody is paid a fair amount within the money that you have allocated to do that. And so it's extremely important to do that every single day. And I think that if you have good business practices in place, that people will enjoy coming to work, just like I enjoy going to work. If you're treating your employees fairly, you're paying them a fair wage, and you're doing a good job, fundamentally, you'll have good results.
Number 1.
As you know, Kyle is at a pinnacle state for growth and expansion for the I-35 corridor. Are you willing to commit the district's resources to make HCISD the top employment destination for school employees? How will you go about attracting and retaining these employees?
Okay. Well, I am all about retention and recruitment of teachers and other employees in our district. As president of Hayes Educators Association for over 7 years, I worked with all employees in the district, from mechanics to bus drivers to custodians to cafeteria workers to teachers to administrators that were also in the organization. And I see their worth and I see their value. Yes, there is a balance add to it because we only have so much money to work with. 80% of the budget is on salaries. So we need to make sure that we use that correctly and utilize all the funds do have, we need to make sure that we do there's several options that we can do. I have always talked about compression of steps when it comes to teachers' experience. That will help greatly. I have always talked about making sure that we are competitive with other school districts in the area and in our whole region. We have moved up, but there's still a way to go. We still need to fund that TASB study that was done. We had several TASB studies done, and they came out of my presentation on salaries to the school board. Because I presented about salaries, the school board did decide to do a TASB study to see where we are competitive-wise all over our area of Texas. They did compare wages, and they did see we were lacking. They did recommend how we can fix that gap in pay. Now, we've been doing small increments, step by step, to get us there. And that is just creating a greater gap. So what do we need to do to close that gap? One of the things that we can do is prioritize our funds. Again, we do have a rainy day fund. We do have a fund balance that is way above the state average. The state tells you you have to have 12 to 20% in that rainy day fund. We have close to 33 to 36% of that rainy day fund. So there is money there available that we can look at. While it might not solve everything, it is a start. We need to put more than 1% into salary compensations for our employees. Because 1% divided by their 12 months, let me tell you, I got paid by the district. So my $1,000 increase divided by 12 months came out to less than 100 a month, 100 that I was receiving every month. So that did not really help me much in the long run. So we really need to look at compensation, condensing steps, compressing our steps, and looking at our rainy day fund. We cannot be afraid to use it.
Ready? Yes, ma'am. 3. Currently, HCISD contributes $341 to the high deductible insurance plan. That has a deductible of $2,500 for employees. Would you seek to change the district contribution? What principles or ethics guide you when making such a decision?
I don't know the answer to that. We are very early in the budget process and we don't have that information yet. So I don't know what will be brought to us with regards to the district's contribution. What we've done in the past is try to make sure that there is a $0 possibility for our employees, that there's one plan that is at no cost. But the ethics for me in making this decision moving forward includes things like, is it still part of pay living wage? Can we make additional contributions to an employee without it being to the detriment to the district as a whole? How many people we have who take advantage of our insurance options right now? So there are a lot of factors to look into it, and if you all would like to come to the budget meeting that will be held on Thursday, I think that we will have an opportunity to talk about this a little more with greater detail. Yes, do we want to give more? Yes. Can we give more? I just am not sure what it looks like yet. So, but come Thursday, and then we'll know.
Thank you. Number 5. Are you willing to commit to having site-based decision-making committees at the campus level for HCISD school employees and parents?
Site-based decision-making committees.
Yes.
We have a campus leadership program involved in place already.
At each campus?
At each campus. And so I think that those committees are extremely valuable for making sure that each one of the schools is represented. And so whenever you have parent involvement, if you can get parent involvement at each one of the schools, I think that you should always have as many opportunities to have a parent involved in this education of their student and in the education of their community. I think success of the school and of the district. I don't think that you could ever have too much over-involvement. I don't think I've ever heard of anybody complaining about having too many people involved or the communication being too excessive. You can never over-communicate and you can never have too much involvement. You can have a lot of opinions, which may stagnate some of the decision-making processes, but I think that having too many people helping out is never, ever a bad thing.
Thank you.
Number 2.
Currently, Texas has adopted a 22-to-1 ratio regarding classroom sizes. What is your position on class size waivers? How will you address class size and overcrowded classrooms? For example, the district had to apply for several waivers in February to address this matter. What is your opinion?
I can talk about class size like all night long, but I only have 3 minutes, so I will try to hold it to that. Okay, class size. I was a teacher for over 10 and a half years. There was times when I actually went over my class size, and I didn't want to lose that kiddo. And I begged Dr. Lyon, who was our superintendent at the time, to get a waiver and let me keep him. And he's like, no, that really impacts class size. We can't do that. We're not at that point. So I had to lose a student, and it was very difficult. So I know that aspect of it. But I also know the aspect of having 23 fourth graders in my classroom and having to talk about STAR, having to teach them and prepare them for writing STAR, for reading STAR, for science STAR, to get them prepared for that. And when you have 23, 24 students in your classroom, that makes it very challenging. And again, we are asked to differentiate for each student. So I can have GT students in my classroom, I can have SPED students in my classroom, I can have low students in my classroom, I can have your middle of the road students. It is very difficult to differentiate for all those students. So class size is very important to me. Under Dr. Lyon, when he was our superintendent, he did make a commitment to class size. And he said for those low socioeconomic schools, they're gonna have an 18-to-1 student-teacher ratio, which was amazing because those schools really benefited from that. And he said the other schools are gonna have 20-to-1, which was great for those as well. That gave them wiggle room in case the classes did get full and kids kept coming. Well, that had a lot of wiggle room before we had to ask for a waiver. So I think we need to get back to that, and we need to look at making policy to ensure that K through 4, we do have 18-to-1 for low socioeconomic schools, 20-to-1 for our other campuses. We need to be committed to that because what we do in elementary is setting the foundation for secondary. We need to make sure to invest in our children, and that is the way to do it. And I do believe class size is so important to our district right now, especially with our rapid growth. We need to commit ourselves to make that commitment and put our children first.
Yes. Get him, girl.
You're out of numbers.
We're out.
Okay, at this time what we're going to do is we will take 3 questions from the audience and we will go on a rotating basis. Each candidate will answer the same question and take turns. Are there any questions from the audience at this point?
What's the response time on this one?
It'll remain 3 minutes.
I just want to make sure. I clicked a second
You're doing
ago.
a good job.
I saw my mistake. I'm good.
Mr. Wiley?
There was a question asked about due process for support personnel, and just one candidate picked that question, but I was very curious as to what the other candidates thought of that question, how they would answer it.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Keller, would you like to start?
Yes, can you read it to me?
I can. Now you're challenging me.
It was one of these
It was
numbers.
either 4, 7, or 5.
It's number 7. When you talk about education support personnel, there are 250,000 personnel in Texas schools, and they tend to have low salaries, few benefits, and are at-will employees with virtually no rights. What is your understanding of at-will employment, especially in the due process area for these school employees?
Okay, that's a really good question because while Texas is an at-will state, you're not required by the state of Texas to have only at-will employees. You can do whatever you want as the employer. As far as the due process situation goes, absolutely they deserve due process. In my opinion, that is not just the right thing to do, it's the responsible thing to do. It protects not only the employee, but it also will protect the employer. So yes, absolutely on due process, and I think that should answer it.
Ms. Orozco?
Well, let me talk about due process. As president of Hayes Educators Association, I was able to work with a lot of employees, like I told you, mechanics, custodians, cafeteria workers, and so on, secretaries, and so on. They did not have due process. So at any time, they could be fired, and they didn't need documentation to do it. And that's the reality of it. And there were so many times that I met with workers, mechanics, and so on, that said, you know, I got called in and they're threatening to fire me. What can I do? The reality of it is they don't have many rights. In Texas, they do not have many rights. As an employer, you can equip your employees with rights. Del Valle did gain due process for their educational support staff. They actually did get that for them, and now they can go through the due process, meaning they can have a grievance, they can go through the chain of command on a grievance, and they need to have documentation if they are going to be fired. That is so important to give these employees a sense of value, a sense of morale, to have them vested in the employer and in the district. It's so imperative. It is not going to hurt us to have due process for all our employees. And I am in full support of due process and following Del Valle's lead and getting due process for our employees here in HCISD. Thank you.
Ms. Nicolenko, would you like to respond to that? No. Okay. I want to give you the chance if you had anything else. Okay.
Well, I do, actually.
Okay.
I do have something else to say. Inherent in my comment, and when I had made a statement that Texas is an at-will employee, there inherently should be a process that the district should already have established in their policies and procedures that go in and outline how an employee is supposed to be treated. For example, I am an employer. I have a staff of 14 people directly that report to me, and Texas is an at-will employment state. However, I can't just walk up to an employee and say, I don't like you, you're fired. There is a process that you're supposed to, and the district should already have, the district has been in existence since the 60s. This is not, we're not a brand new school district, and so the school district should have a process that's in place to make sure that Joe Manager, who wants to fire the mechanic, who maybe, made his boss mad. To me, that is such a foreign concept from the business perspective that I am astounded that we're even having this conversation. If our administration and our district has not put something in process that's in place for that already, then I think that we've got bigger problems than we even need to talk about.
Thank you. Another question from the audience? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Linda Rodriguez, and I'd like to ask the candidates if they are, well, my question is about dropout rates and whether they're familiar with the board's current policies to reduce those numbers, and do they have any ideas to improve?
Okay, Ms. Nicolenko, would you like to take that one first?
I will. In my personal opinion, a dropout rate less than 0, we should not have any dropout rates. We should do what we can do. Of course, things are going to happen. You are going to have some students that you just can't help. But I think that we should put forth effort, every possible effort, to make sure that that child does not drop out of school. I know it's difficult, and there's different situations that happen at all times, but I was actually looking at our dropout rates today, and they're in the, excuse me, the completion rate for high school students is roughly, in the 90s, and that completely, that made me sad, actually, that there are, you know, that we're only at 90%. I say only at 90%. Because that's a lot of kids that we're not servicing and that that are being put at a disadvantage. Because we're only as strong as our weakest link, and those children are our weakest link, and we can't be strong and successful as a community, which is what we should be doing, if we can't get those kids to be successful.
Ms. Orozco?
Several years ago, I want to say maybe 3 to 5 years ago, Dr. Poole and her team put together a plan to address dropout rates and to address our dropout situation in HCISD. They actively were searching out people that had dropped out and were bringing them back. And bringing them back with programs like the Phoenix program that's at the Live Oak, that were giving them some solutions, and that really helped bring our numbers, actually, it brought our numbers down. We also have things like the PEP program that Community Action partners with HCISD to have available to our teenage mothers. So that PEP program also has brought in those students back into the folds and has allowed them to graduate from HCISD. Do we have a fix-all? No, we don't, because we do need to put money into that. But I know that, again, strides are being made to address that, and programs like the Phoenix program, like the PEP program, and other initiatives are bringing those students back to HCISD to finish, or giving them an alternative way to do it. Being on the Board of Community Action, we also have the GED program that we have available to our students. Again, Community Action does partner with HCISD, so that's another alternative way for them to get their GED. And again, our dropout rates have decreased some, but there is still much work to be done. Thank you.
Ms. Keller?
Yes, okay, so this is exciting because our dropout rate was terrible. And starting in about 2010, I participated in the pilot program of what's called Project Hope, and that's what Mrs. Orozco was referring to. So we got in the car, and I think Mr. Pierce, you participated in that as well. We got in the car, we, as a team, 2 or 3 of us, and we drove to people's houses, and we knocked on the door, and we spoke to kids. That was hard. In a lot of cases, that was very hard. I went to a young man's home who had 2 children of his own. He had a 6-day-old baby. He was 16 years old. He had a 6-day-old baby in a bassinet next to a bed that had his dying grandmother in it, and those were all the people that lived in the house. He had no way to go to school. We worked with that student and worked with that student and worked with that student, and that student graduated 2 years later through the use of the Phoenix program, which provides for flexible hours and alternative ways to get your credit hours in to graduate. Our graduation rates have dramatically improved, and they're better than if you come to board meetings and you hear me talk and we get the list of academic results, sometimes those aren't so great. And every time I talk about how they're not so great and where the improvements need to be. Graduation rate is above the state and the local average. So we've done some good work there. I'm actually pretty proud of that.
Thank you. And one last question from the audience. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Patty Wood, and I've been in the district for a long time, involved in committees and served on the board for several years. Differentiated introduction is obviously a very, very important issue, and it's been discussed in this forum tonight. It's also extremely difficult to accomplish for the teachers. It's an insurmountable task, and I'm not sure how to do it, and I was never able to get there either. If you talk about taking groups of children and segregating them into learning levels or styles, then you have the problem of stigmatizing kids. So what other solutions do you have to offer to accomplish this goal that might be better for the students as well?
Ms. Orozco, you'll go first this time.
As a teacher, I experience clustering students. We tried everything. We tried homogeneous grouping, We tried heterogeneous grouping, we tried mixing them, we tried having GT with our higher kids. We tried it all. Because what we want in the end is to make sure all our children are successful. And it's very difficult when I have GT students and then I have the most neediest children in the same class. That makes it very difficult to teach to them at what they need, to give them what they need. And as a teacher, that hurts you. When you cannot provide the services to your best of your ability to them, it kills you. And it does. That's why we stay at school until 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night trying to figure it out. We try and go through so many resources, look at our curriculum, look at the TEAC, look at best practices, and try to figure something out. But the reality is, there's not a solution that we've come up with. There isn't. We have tried it. We want to outreach and help all our students. But you know what will help is class size. Having a smaller class size and really talking to your team about what's going to work best for you as a team. Because that's what we did. We decided, okay, what's going to work best? Are your strengths as a teacher working with our lowest students? Well, they need a model. They need somebody to partner with and have as a model and be able to see the success, what success looks like as well. Someone to help bring them along and help them and encourage them and motivate them. So we said, wait a minute, we cannot do homogeneous grouping here. It's not a fix for everything. So you need to look at your teacher and what their strengths are. You need to look at class size, definitely. And you need to have those hard conversations as a team, as a campus, as a district. And again, you have to do what's best. What might be best for one campus might not be best for another campus. You really need to look at your population of students. Thank you.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes, okay, so I mentioned this earlier. I have a couple of schools of thought on differentiated instruction. I think it is an enormous and veritably impossible task, what we ask our teachers to do today.
Amen.
However, I think that we can fix that without segregating students by ability. You can team teach, you can cluster, you can be fluid. You can have multiple levels of clustered students in one class, say 3. But if we're talking about 6 or 8, that seems impossible. But if you have just a few, and you are fluid and you provide team teaching, which many campuses do at 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, and even in the lower grades too, you can team teach and address those things so that you can do your small group instruction. The other thing that this brings to mind is that we have this expectation that teachers are going to differentiate to every style of student, and we as a school district are not differentiating our professional development for teachers. So that strikes me as somewhat hypocritical, frankly, and it's been a problem for me. Teachers know what professional development they want and they need. There are going to be a few things that are a directive. There are going to be a few. But when it's a top-heavy edict of sorts, then that's when we get into trouble. But we can have professional development on things like this: how to team teach, how to co-teach, how to be fluid with your instruction, so that we can give our teachers a break, because as I don't see how they can do it. And that is frustrating to me as a board member, because it seems like an impossible task. And every day I sit on the Board of Trustees and I expect these folks to go in and complete an impossible task. It's our job to be their advocates, and I feel very strongly that we should address that. All right, that's it.
Ms. McClendon?
Differentiated teaching, when I think about that just conceptually, strikes me as setting everybody up for failure. I think that we have a wonderful resource in our teaching staff, and putting them at a disadvantage from the get-go is disservicing them, putting the children in, categorizing and labeling our children. We've got way too many labels for all of our different things. You're underutilizing it. You're setting your children up for failure also. Because look, kids are smart. They're extremely intelligent, and they'll know if they're not in the A group or the B group or the C group. They understand that. I don't think that there is a perfect answer, but I do think that setting a curriculum and having your children learn to their best of ability, and then also you have alternative programs for those children. For example, you can meet with the parent, especially in the primary education, you've got parent-teacher conferences where parents meet with their teachers, and then you have alternative programs where you could suggest kindly to the parents that perhaps student A or student B is struggling with a certain subject, and send them to supplemental teaching that you have, because you do have special programs for children. You have intervention, you have reading intervention, you have math intervention. Perhaps sending them to a specialized program where they're not necessarily falling within that range of learning that you need. And so I think really using the intervention system that we have is very helpful, as well as supplementing. Instead of doing a differentiated teaching, I think that using the intervention systems that we have is very helpful.
Okay, and at this time, I'll let you have one or two closing sentences before we end tonight's forum. We'll start with Ms. Keller.
All right. So thank you for allowing me to be here tonight to talk about the community that I love. I wanted to mention one more thing before we left. There is more to this district than numbers. We are more than test results, and we are more than ID numbers and dollars. We're more than that. We are families. Our families are real people who need real leadership. They need leaders who not only care, but who know how to help them. And it's hard to be a student and a teacher, a parent and a taxpayer sometimes. People really do struggle. But what they know is that with me that they get help. We need to focus on what matters most, and that's building a community that educates kids, because that is the business that we are in. We are in the business of educating kids. And I'm in it, and you're in it, and we are in it together. April 25th is the beginning of early voting. May 7th is Election Day, and I hope to see all of you at the polls. So thank you very much.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight and listening to some of our opinions. It's actually very nice for people to get to know the candidates and learn some of their positions, which is one of the things that I thought the forum was about, is getting to know the candidates. We are a community, and we're only as strong as our weakest link, as I said before. And so it's really important that we continually strive to raise the bar and make this community and this district better than what it is right now. One of the things that we can do in order to make our community better is follow through. One of the things that our district has not done a good job of in the past few years is following through on some of the reports that we have paid a lot of money for. For example, I was reading the Gibson reports on the audits of our education. I was reading the Gibson report on the facilities audit, and that recently just came out. And there was a report on the HR audit that we also did that we paid some money for as well. And I don't see a whole bunch of changes coming up as a result of those. We're paying a lot of money for things that we're not implementing. We have a hard time following through. Our district needs somebody that can follow through. I am a follow-through kind of person. I'm a CPA. Obviously, I like to follow through on my education, I went to high school, I graduated from college, not once, but twice, because I'm very passionate about education, and I also have a CPA certification. So I follow through to the highest level. You can't get higher than a CPA if you're an accountant. That's about as high as you can get. So if you want somebody that can follow through, that can get the job done, and that can have passion for her community, then I'm going to be your candidate. And so I really would appreciate your support starting April 25th. Thank you.
Ms. Risco?
So many things I want to share that I left out in my introductions. I'm so excited. Yes, I have been a teacher for over 10 years. I have lived in Kyle for over 15 years. I'm committed to our district, to our community. My family has been very involved in the community in different ways. Through my service on community action, my husband serving on City Council Education Foundation, to all our services to nonprofits that we do. And it is so important that we are involved because we are shaping the lives of children. To me, as a teacher, or as a teacher and as a taxpayer and as a community member, one thing always came to mind when I saw school board candidates. I always thought, okay, for the 10 years I was a teacher, 9 of those years I attended every school board meeting, every budget workshop, every goal setting, except twice after my baby was born. I attended over 50, 60 meetings, okay? That tells you something. That tells you your commitment to the district. It shows what you're really in for. It shows that you're really committed not only to the district, but to our children. And it always puzzled me going to candidate forums and talking to candidates and them saying, and me knowing they've never been to a board meeting because I was sitting in the front row every single time. It would puzzle me that you would do that because that is a disservice to our children. You need somebody who's knowledgeable, and I'm not talking about education. I have a master's in elementary education. I have a bilingual certification, but that is not what makes me intelligent. What makes me intelligent is me knowing that our kids are important, that our community needs to work together. Knowing that is what makes me the most qualified person for District 5. Thank you.
Yeah.
On behalf of the Hayes Educators Association, I want to thank y'all for coming out and especially thank the candidates for their time. And I will give it back to Ms. Meadows.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here tonight. Your presence is, it says a lot about your commitment to our community. And we thank you very much. And we also want to thank the candidates who gave of their Tuesday night evening. I'm sure they were happy to be at home with their family, but that shows the level of commitment that they have towards our community and our district. And so let's give our candidates. I hope that you found the experience of participating in the forum educational. That is what our entire platform is, that we're here for our children and education. And there was a wide variety of questions that were asked this time, and I hope that their answers and the discussions that we covered and the issues that we of concern to the district are here with us tonight. That any candidate you choose is obviously going to be very well versed in what our community needs. So with that in mind, I just wanted to remind you that early voting does begin April 25th, like some of the candidates said, 8 to 5 from April 25th to May 3rd at the Kyle City Hall, Buda Elementary Upper Campus, HCISD Admin Building. And you can also check online for any extended hours. And Election Day, let's not wait till Election Day, folks, because they're going to be all over the place that day. But if you do wait till Election Day, just check our Facebook page or the HCISD website. And please like our Facebook page of Hayes Educators. We're always letting you know what is happening in our district, representing our community, our children, our parents, and everyone that is a school district employee. So we thank you very much for being here tonight. And again, one more time for our candidates and our moderators and our timekeeper. And also, I want to remind you that some of the candidates did